Yo, how's it going, everybody? My name's Matt Wilson. I'm on a Freedom Lifestyle podcast, and I'm a digital marketing agency owner. I run an agency called Immortal Media. We do an event called the Entrepreneurs Marketing Conference, and I'm about to get into some good shit.
Here we are then. So we're back with the Freedom Lifestyle podcast, and we got a very, very special episode actually in a studio in London with the main man, Matty Wilson, who I was actually, a lot of you know, I went to a business event in December in 2022 called EMC, and Matt Wilson is the one that runs the event, but he also runs something called Einstein Marketing, which a lot of you young entrepreneurs listening to this right here, right now, have probably been advertised on YouTube by Einstein Marketing, because I used to see it all the time. So I knew who you were before we even connected. But I guess for you, like a question for you, Matt, to give us some context to our listeners, like I guess rewind back to the start of like your entrepreneurial journey. Like where did it all start before you've now created like a 7-figure marketing agency, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I came from a place called Gravesend in Kent. Pretty rough area. Most people sort of working class. Family, my family as well was the same. Money wasn't around, you never saw nice cars or anything like that. You didn't believe any of that sort of stuff was possible for you. So growing up in a place like that, the possibility of business, of money, of wealth and all that sort of stuff just weren't there really. And I was working, well, first of all, like I had children really young. So I was 20. I put my first kid out when I was just 20. And that really kicked me up the arse because obviously loads of people that I hung around with at the time, a couple of bad crowds, and we used to get in trouble with the police and all that sort of stuff. Lots of those guys that had kids, and trust me, from where I'm from, everyone's popping kids out in their teens, it's just a thing you do, right? But I remember seeing loads of these guys and they weren't supporting their kids. They weren't seeing them. They're leaving the mums did all of this sort of stuff. And I had to make a decision, which was like, do I want to go down that route or do I actually want to, make myself something for this kid and provide for this kid? So that was probably the big turning point to do something, half decent, I suppose. But even at that point, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, none of that sort of stuff entered my mind because again, the environment I came from, it's just not there. You don't understand unless you see something and you can understand how it works. You're never going to think that you can do it. So coming from a place where that you don't know any business owners, there's not Ferraris and stuff driving down to make you think like, hold on, what's going on here? It's very difficult to think that you can do it. So I just went down the job route. Right, I've got to get a good job, and I actually got a job with my old man, my dad, who was working in a factory at the time. He was a machine operator, and there was these huge machines in this factory, like massive machines, and they used to make plastic, like 4 or 5 stories high they were, and we used to do 12-hour shift days and nights, but it was paying good money. Well, for someone from where I'm from, it was paying good money. I was 21 and I was taking home like, actually no, sorry, I was 20. Yeah, because I started there when I was like, sort of 19, 20. And I was taking home, 30 grand, 35 grand. Loads of my mates were taking home like, maybe 20 grand, something like that. So I was earning good money. It's what I thought. I was earning more money than 40-year-olds in the same place. To me, I was like, fucking hell, this is sick. But then, something just kept niggling at the back of my mind. It was like, do you want to do this for the rest of your life? And I can remember the exact moment when it happened. Like visually, like we're sitting here now, clear as day. I was in the smoking booth. This was pre-2007. Smoking booths, right? This factory. And I went in, and all these old guys, again, they've been there a long time, and there's these old guys in there, and all bitching, and they're moaning about this place, mate, it's rubbish, and all this, and they're slagging the place off that pays them. And I can remember going in there, and Dave was the guy that I asked, and I looked over at Dave, and I said, "Hey, Dave, how long have you been here?" And he looked at me and he said, I've been here 32 years now. 32. I was like, 32 years.
32, wow.
And they're bitching and moaning about this place, but he's been there for 32 years. And I can remember it scaring the absolute shit out of me because I looked at him and I was like, I'm never going to be that. I'm never going to turn out that. Now, there's nothing wrong with working in a factory. My old man, he was like one of the high ups at that place and he loved it. Fair play. More power to you. If you love what you're doing, sweet. But I remember looking at these guys and thinking, if I ever get to a point where I'm unhappy, I'm just going to leave because life's too short and I don't want to be 32 years into this job still moaning about it, right? And that sort of scared me, and that's what sort of opened up my mind to, you know, personal development, all this sort of stuff. So I started reading books, I started listening to audios. I found Tony Robbins. I remember seeing infomercials or, you know, adverts or whatever on TV of like Tony Robbins and all this sort of stuff. And he was selling his personal power program at the time. And it was like a, you know, 12-pack CD thing, right? That's what he used to do. But the thing was like 200 quid. There's no way I could afford that. So I can remember I found one on eBay for like 30 quid and I bought that second hand. And then I burnt those CDs. Do you remember you had to burn CDs? I burnt those CDs onto my computer and then put them onto my iPod. Like, people don't even remember iPods now. I had an iPod because iPhones weren't out, and an iPod, and I burnt it on there. And these in the factory, 12-hour shifts, right? And because it was noisy, we had to wear earplugs. And if you got caught without your earplugs on, you get bollocks because you had to wear them, health and safety and all that shit. And they were orange and blue. And what I did, because I wanted 12-hour shifts, I was like, I want to be filling my mind with as much good shit as I can, learning, right? Because I thought if I'm here pressing buttons on this machine and stuff, I want to be like learning so that I can finally get out of it. So it took me about 2 hours, but I painted the headphones of my iPod, which were white. I painted them orange and blue so they looked like earplugs.
Yes.
And I could walk around the factory. I could like be on my machine, listening to Robbins, listening to all this good shit that was feeding my brain. And if the foreman walked past, he'd just think I had my earplugs in, you know. And that was like a big turning point for me because it just opened my eyes and my mind up. Basically, learning opened my eyes up because all this stuff I was learning, and that thing would lead me to another book, and then that book would lead me to something else. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. All of these books, right? These big ones, I was just consuming while I was at the factory.
You were also getting paid to learn as well, and I resonated with it, and I know Jacob would have as well, because when I was after lockdown, I ended up having to work at Amazon for 8 weeks, and I did the exact same thing. I turned the 10-hour shifts into 10 hours of learning.
Yeah.
And I know, Jacob, you've done the same while you're at building. So if you're listening to this right now, like, there's some serious value already to start utilizing your time more, because even though you were at a job that you didn't want to be at, you were utilizing that time to actually start learning, and then just using that time as effectively as you possibly can, and then eventually you escaped it.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, from there, one thing that kept coming up in all these books, right? Because again, I'm still so like unfamiliar with that world. I'm hearing things and I'm trying to pick it up, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, but so what's the next step? You know, what's the next thing I need to do then if this is the case, if all this stuff? And one thing that kept coming up was sales. I can remember like Robbins was saying it. I was reading Branson's book and he was saying it. The one skill you need to learn if you want to be successful, especially in business, is you have to learn how to sell. And this kept coming up. And in everything I was reading and listening to, this one thing kept coming up. And I was thinking, again, I've always thought sales is a job you get if you can't get a job. It's like, if you can't find a job, get a sales job, because there's always people hiring for salespeople.
Yeah.
And again, I'm thinking like call centers, annoying people. That's what I related selling to. But this thing kept coming up. So I was like, you know, right, the next thing I need to learn is how to sell. So again, while I was still in the factory, I started buying everything, illegally downloading, buying stuff off eBay, secondhand, anything I could about selling. Brian Tracy, Tom Hopkins, Zig Ziglar, all of these old school like sales trainers. And I would just start consuming information about selling to a point where I reckon I can do this. You know, I consumed hundreds of hours of stuff and read books. So I thought, the first thing I need to do if I actually want to be in business, because at this point now I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I wanted to be in charge of my own life, have my own business and all that sort of stuff, I've got to jump into sales. And I had a mate at the time who worked in the city as an investment broker. Hardcore sales environment, boiler room style, right? Really high intense environment, cold calling like non-stop, massive floor, like, you know, Wolf of Wall Street sort of style, that sort of floor. And, you know, I said to him, look, mate, I really want to do this. Would you give me a job? And he's like, mate, you sure? It's tough. And I was like, mate, I'll do it. I'm ready. And I went for an interview, and I remember sitting in an interview, and the interview went really well, and Gary was the guy that was interviewing me. And just as I left, he was like, "One thing you should do when you leave, in between hearing a decision, you should listen to an audio called the Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy." Well, it just so happens that I was literally listening to it as I walked in for the interview.
No way.
I pulled out and showed him my iPod, and it was already on there. And obviously, so I
got you the job.
So I got 100%. Of course it did. So I got the job. But then at this point, I've got one kid. I've got another one on the way. I'm making at this point 35 grand safe. And I call this income range like the like death, basically.
Yeah.
It's so comfortable.
Yeah.
Because it's not uncomfortable enough to want to change, but it's not comfortable enough to be comfortable, if you know what I mean. Right?
Yeah,
and it's that bracket between 35 and like 70 grand. That bracket there, if you're earning that now listening, like you're way too comfortable to want to change anything.
Yes.
So it can really hold you there, especially when you've got a kid and one on the way.
Yeah.
And your missus don't work, because my missus didn't work. And I now had to tell everyone. So I now had to tell my missus. By the way, the job was 12 grand basic. So that's what it was, 12 grand, fuck all. It's like, it was a grand a month. So it's 12 grand basic, but the potential was to earn 80, 90 grand. That's the potential, and that's all I saw, because I believed that I could do it. So I had to now try to find a way to tell everyone that I was going to take this job for 12 grand. I told Emily. She was all right about it, but again, a bit worried. I told my mum and my dad. My dad was like, "Oh, mate, I don't know about this and all this sort of stuff." Classic, right? Really concerned. They're only doing it out of love. I remember I told my nan and granddad, and my nan and granddad cried.
to not do it.
They cried because they were so worried.
Yes.
And they thought I was so stupid. That both of them cried. They're very, very, like, they're the tightest people ever. They are the classic, like, get a job, save money, do all this sort of stuff. Like, to leave a 35 grand job for a 12 grand, because that's all they saw, was so scary to them. When I had 2 kids, effectively, they cried. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is fucking hard work. But I did it anyway, because again, I just believed in myself, and I knew that I needed. I knew this wasn't going to be forever, but I knew I needed these skills to then eventually, do whatever business. And at that point, I didn't know, but this is the thing: I just had to follow that first step. It's not about knowing. I didn't know at that point what I wanted to do. I didn't know what business I wanted. I didn't know what I was going to sell. I didn't know anything like that. But I knew that this was the next step, so I knew I had to take it. And then, that takes you up to about, early 20s when I first got that job as a salesperson.
So I bet that was a mental experience in the foundations of what you built today. How did that lead on to what you've created today with Einstein Marketing?
Yeah, so, I smashed it at that job. No one had ever made because the minimum investment that we were selling was 10 grand on the phone, cold calling. No one had ever made a sale in the first month at this firm that I was at. And I made a sale in my first month. And then within 3 months, they had me training salespeople. Because I'd studied it so much, most of these guys that were coming in, they're just oh, this is a job, I'll try and make some money at it. I'd studied it for so long. I knew this stuff inside out, so I could teach it as well. But then one thing I remember, sitting there one day, and I was like, the leads we were calling, man, we're calling these people up, and you're getting told to fuck off, all of this sort of, where'd you get my number from, and all this sort of stuff. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, like, where do these leads come from? Like, what gives us the right to call these leads? And I remember sitting down in the pub after work one day, asking the manager and just being like, how much do these leads that we're calling cost? And he was like, they're roughly about £10 a lead. And I'm thinking, fuck, and bearing in mind, we have to call 200 a day. And there was 50 guys there. So I'm working out, I'm thinking they spend like hundreds of thousands on these leads, right? And the criteria for them is like they have an ISA. That is it. If they've got 5 grand in an ISA, they're on this list. There's no, they haven't given us their information. These are brought lists, the worst leads you can get. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking there must be a better way to get better leads. So then I went on my 3rd rabbit hole of learning, right? We had personal development, sales. Now I'm like a marketing rabbit hole. So I started Googling how to generate leads, and then bearing in mind, this is like, what's this? Jesus. This is like 15 years ago, right? So this is pre any social media, only Google. So then I find Google ads, start learning about Google ads. Wow, you can run ads, and then they can do this sort of stuff. And I just learned everything I could about that. to the point where I thought I was confident enough to run Google Ads. And I approached my manager and I said, listen, mate, you're paying X amount for these crap leads right now. I think if you give me £1,000 to test, I think I can generate you some much better leads that actually give us their information. And I sold him on it effectively, and he gave me £1,000 budget, and that £1,000 made them, I think it was about 60 grand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yes.
mental.
Wait, you sold the company you're working for?
Yeah.
Genius.
Wow.
Yeah.
it's
So
genius.
then, of course, when because at this point, right, no one was doing it, especially their competitors. They weren't doing their own lead gen. They were buying lists. No one knew how to market at this point, especially online. It's all new. You know, Google was only around at that point for, 5-10 years or something, right? It was new. No one was doing it. So, spent £1,000, and like these leads, although I can't remember exactly how many we captured, I think, if I can remember rightly, it was about 150 odd leads. Not, so it was like £10 a lead or whatever, £7 a lead. But the quality of them was so good that, again, 6-7 of them purchased, right, and actually and invested. So the returns were crazy, and obviously then I'm now a golden boy now. I'm like, how the fuck did you do that?
Yeah.
Can you do it? Can you do it again? What if we give you 10 grand? I was like, well, let's see what happens. And then so on and so on. So I ended up running the market, and I wasn't on the phones anymore. I was in charge of marketing now. So I was making them the money. Then I started getting approached by loads of other guys in London, all because it's a very close-knit community, that community. And they all started approaching me as well, like in the bars and pubs. We all drink in the same places. Like, mate, can you come do it for us? I was like, mate, I can't. I'm working for these guys. And that's how I got into marketing, from there.
That's such a mad way to get into it, but I actually love it. But it's evident and clear that over the years you've just been all in on personal development, learning a high valued skill, like moving to sales, then moving on to marketing, going all in with education. So I guess, and kind of rewinding back to when you mentioned about your grandparents, kind of wanting to put you off starting that business, taking that risk. And obviously a lot of our listeners, Freedom Lifestyle listeners, are young entrepreneurs that are in that predicament where they might be in a comfortable job and they're a bit scared to take a risk, and also the people around them. So how important is it for you, Matt, to upgrade your network, get around people that are thinking bigger, and also making sure that you're listening to people that are thinking bigger?
It's one of the most important parts of the whole thing, man. And I really realized this after I left the city. So at this point, I'm doing pretty well, and some of these guys selling are earning serious money, and I'm seeing guys taking home 40-50 grand a month in comms, things like that. So they're doing really good. So I was around it sort of then, but again, they're still employees. So I never really seen it in business. So from there, again, I've just had my second kid. Now I've got my third on the way. I was popping them out.
You were at it.
And I'm only 24 at this point. Third one on the way, and the commute into London is getting me. It's just because it's probably 3 hours round trip, like 3 hours on a train, man. It just kills me, and I'm like, again, do I want to live the rest of my life like this? Okay, yeah, I'm earning great money and all this sort of stuff, but it was a horrible environment to be a part of as well, with very high pressure and all that sort of stuff. Mainly it was time. The main thing was time. Time's so valuable. And I was thinking, I'm spending 3 hours of my life on a train every day. In a week, that's 15 hours. That's a whole fucking day where I'm away from my kids, where I could be doing other things and all this sort of stuff. So I started looking for jobs more local to me. And as if by miracle, there was a guy hiring for a marketing manager role. Now the basic was only like 25 grand, but again, there was commission and all that sort of stuff built into it. Way less than what I was making in the city, but it was literally at the time I was living in a tiny little village just outside of Gravesend called Mepham, and really nice village. And it was no joke, it was 2 roads down from where I was. And this turned out to be a guy called Andy Harrington. You guys heard of him?
I've heard of him.
It rings a bell, yeah.
Does he do like public speaking?
Public speaker training. Yeah, exactly. So he's like the smaller UK version of Tony Robbins. He started out like that, doing an event called Power to Achieve, which is unleash the power within type event. Right,
yes.
All mindset stuff. He's an NLP master. He's a genius, and public speaking as well. He teaches that. And I'd started working for him. And again, as a marketing manager, it was me, him and his PA. We was in his spare room in his house at the time. He was doing multiple 6 figures, wanted to scale the business. And this guy was the first time I'd seen a business owner. And again, anyone out there that's like, thinking about getting into business, entrepreneurship, one of the best bits of advice I can give you is don't try to go out on your own and do it first. Get into a business, but a small business where you can be very, very close to the top guy or guys. Because like my education was here at this place with Andy, because again, it was just me, him and his PA. So I got to sit with him so closely, like me and him became best friends. And I got to see and understand business like they can't teach you in, wherever, Oxford or any of these other fucking places like university and stuff like that, because I actually got to see how it actually works, how he thinks. And I was around him all of the time. And I was learning so much. And the most important part of having that network, of having someone that close that is you then get to see what's possible. So I always talk about, having a money mindset and not an employee mindset. You've got to be successful. I think the first thing you've got to do is you've got to strip away all those beliefs that you've been given and had forced upon you as a kid, right? Go get a job, earn money, retire, have a pension, all that shit. That because they're hardwired beliefs that are put in all of us.
Yes.
And it's very, very hard to get your mind out of that. So you've got to start to believe that earning 100 grand a month, for example, back in the day to me was impossible. It's like, you can't do that. How are you going to do that? Earning $1 million a month. It's just these numbers are crazy. Getting around people that are doing it when you see it with your own fucking eyes, it's hard to deny the fact. And I can remember I was working with him for about maybe 6 months. And I literally saw this guy make just over $250,000. It was like 270 grand or whatever in under 2 hours.
Wow.
Mad.
And every single belief that I had about money, how it's earned, how much you can earn, was just blown away out of the water.
Yeah.
Because I physically saw it happen. And I was like, and it was so powerful for me, because then the belief grows. And it's like, well, I've seen it with my own eyes now. Like, if he can do it, why can't I? And then that seed's then planted, and that's what really sparks off, belief. But that wouldn't happen unless I was around that person. So going back to your original question, that's why it's so powerful to get around people that think like you, that want the same things that you want. Try to always be the dumbest person in the room, not the smartest. All that sort of stuff is just massively important for those reasons, I'd say.
Wow, that's mad. So you're in this business.
Yeah.
You had these mental realizations.
Yeah.
You started thinking big. What then happened between that moment and then leading up to Einstein Marketing, starting that, and then obviously what you've created today?
Yeah, so I was with Andy for how long was I with Andy? So anyway, I ended up running that company. So he made me managing director. After about 3 years, I was running the company, and he was doing nothing. He was literally just out, living life. And I was running the company, and I helped. First of all, I helped grow his sales team, because obviously I had loads of experience there. So I grew that, trained them, brought in some key people. But I was like managing director of that company. We grew it to over 10 million. So we went multiple 6 figures to, 8-figure company within that space, within that sort of like 5-6 year period. And there was just something, there was a mixture of stuff. It was, have I done everything that I can here? Do I now want to do something that's mine and my own? Because again, I didn't rush it. I was very, very patient, and that's a key skill to have, I think, with this sort of stuff. Patience. I knew that I was getting an education that I wouldn't have got anywhere else, so I was fine being there. I was, and the people that I was meeting through him was just crazy. Some of my best friends today, and clients actually, I've met through Andy. But there was just something niggling in the back of my mind. But at the same time, I didn't want to leave him in the lurch, because I was a very key person in that company. And I knew if I just broke off and started my own company, he would have been fucked, pretty much. So I sat down and had a conversation with him and said, look, mate, I want to start an agency. I think I could do it, all that sort of stuff. Would you mind if I, in my spare time, start putting together this agency? And I wanted to be upfront with him and tell him, and he was fine with it, massively supportive, and helped me do that. And then it got to a point where it had grown, the agency had grown as much as it could while I was working there. So then I had to make a decision, and what was beautiful about it is that it was a completely joint decision. He knew and I knew, and I'd sort of what's the word? I'd had his son as an apprentice for a couple of years. He was very, very good at all of that stuff as well. So, you know, he was ready to sort of step into that role a bit more anyway and support him if I left. And then, I left and then just went all in on Einstein. Now, Einstein was actually originally, it's not even the agency. The actual agency is called Immortal Media. Einstein was the education brand, because what I really wanted deep down, I wanted an online education company that trains businesses on this sort of stuff that I know, you know, like digital marketing and all that sort of stuff. So they were two separate things. So the agency's like Immortal Media. And then, you know, from there, we just started to take on more clients. You know, lots of the people that are in that sort of education, coaching space, first of all, because obviously that was Andy's network. You know, the Rob Moores, all of the sort of big guys, you know, in the industry. Greg Secker, you know, he's like a big in the sort of trading space. All of those guys, you know, we build funnels and run all of their ads, and then from there we then just expanded out to other businesses as well.
It's amazing what you're doing, and obviously I went to your event, EMC, like shout out EMC, it was unbelievable. So
yeah.
I guess obviously I got a question for you in terms of the beautiful thing about EMC. Obviously you run it, but what was your biggest lesson you actually got from running EMC?
Yeah, there's lots actually. I mean,
what was the standout?
So yeah, let me give you a little bit of background on the people that are listening as well. So the EMC is the Entrepreneurs Marketing Conference. The idea was, again, over here in the UK, I come from that event space. Andy run these events. Loads of other people run these events. You've been to like Nick James's,
yeah,
and that sort of stuff.
Players, yeah.
And one thing that was similar with all of them is that they're all focused on sales, you know, at these events, which is fine. Again, I love those events. That's my background. But what I spotted was a gap for a value-only event. Instead of a low-priced or free event where they then sell something, it's like pay for a ticket and just get blown away with value and have a great experience. So we modeled a company in the States called Digital Marketer. They run an event called Traffic and Conversion Summit, the best event I've ever been to ever, apart from mine. And what one thing that was just amazing, and it just sort of, again, it just goes back to being self-aware. I remember thinking to myself, I go there every year, and I've probably taken over the years 20 people there. It's in San Diego. The tickets are $1,000. The flights are $4,000 or $5,000. Then you've got the hotel and you've got food. I was spending like upwards of $10,000 to go to this event once a year. Plus I've taken like 20 people, and I thought, what makes this so good, and what makes me want to invite other people? Well, first of all, there's no selling, so you never feel like pressured or uncomfortable. The value that you get from the speakers is real good shit, like amazing value that I can actually use in my business. So actionable content. Okay, cool. And then the third thing was like experience. When I go there, I just have a good time. They throw parties. They have like networking things going on. It's just funky shit that happens all the time. And I thought, because it's a good experience, that's why I invite other people. And then I looked in the UK and I just thought, there's not an event like it. So why are we flying all the way over there? Why isn't there something in the UK for us guys this side of the pond in Europe and stuff to go to? And we just decided to do it. So you know, we put it together. The first year, 250 people sold it out. The next year was 350. Because we were only allowed 350 because of COVID. That was like the sort of COVID-ish time, 2021. And then last year, 2022, we had 850 people. And then this year, we're going for 2,000.
Oh, I love it.
Nice.
Yeah, big step up back in Brighton.
What was your first, how many at your first event?
250.
250.
It's literally, 2,000. You've 10x, haven't you?
Well, the goal originally was to go 255, 5-1, 1 to 2, and then we're going to go 2-3, and then 3-4 probably. You know, because the goal is to sell it. So we want to sell this. We want to sell this event in a couple of years. For our target's 30 million. We want to get 30 million for it.
Nice.
And we know everything. And again, it's like, that's the target. So, okay, what needs to happen to get that target? Well, who's the buyer? Well, there's this company called Clarion based in the UK, which is a touch. And they were the ones that brought Traffic and Conversion Summit. They brought Traffic and Conversion Summit for 67 million. They brought Affiliate World or Ad World or one of the other they're buying events up all over the place. So I was like, okay, sweet. How do we get on their radar? So then I've sort of made connections of who knows them, to the point I've got a meeting with them next week in London, and then they're coming down to the event as well, just to get on their radar. Again, we're not expecting offers or anything like that yet, but we want them to know that it's there, and for them to sort of have a little look at it because they want to buy it. So yeah, one of the back to your questions, one of the biggest things we've learned is it's fucking hard to fill events. That's what it is.
You're making it happen.
What's been like, so for anyone who's listening who may want to start an event or run a retreat in the future, like what's your biggest piece of advice to fill an event?
Yeah, good. So when you first your first one, for example, if you want to grow an event, if you're not just doing a one-off, that's different. But for us, we wanted to grow a brand, EMC. We wanted, our goal is to have people blocking it out in their calendar every year. So if someone's wife shouts, "Oh, yeah, we're going on holiday," the first thing they do is check that it don't overlap with EMC. That's the sort of story we tell ourselves in the office, to grow an event. One of the main things you have to do is you have to let people know that it sells out. So, for example, there was no point in year one in me going into an event and having a goal to sell 1,000 people. And the average ticket price at that time was like 300 quid. It just wouldn't happen. But there would be people out there, and I've experienced this firsthand, that try to put on these big events. Oh yeah, we're going to get 1,000 people there, and they just bite off more than they can chew. You have to grow an event. How you grow an event is that you get people to come, you blow them away, so they come back, but they also bring 2 people.
God, and it scales every year.
So the most important thing was patience. Like, I knew we weren't going to make money in year one, because again, an event like that where you're not selling and you're not making a shit ton of money from selling products and stuff, you're not going to make profit. We weren't going to make profit in year one. Goal was not to lose money. Sweet. We actually made like $4,000, which was a touch, but we didn't expect to like make a lot of money. But main goal, sell it out so that the market knows that this event sells out.
Yeah.
So when we promote next year's one, they buy, because again, the first year we didn't have any proof. We didn't have photos, we didn't have videos, promo footage, all this sort of stuff that we've got now. You had me, an idiot, on a fucking roller coaster in Brighton saying, "Come to EMC, it's gonna be great," and it's like, but why are they going to believe that? Like, who am I to? So it's very, very hard to promote that first one. Although we pulled it off, great. But again, I made sure that it was very, very doable. I knew with my audience, my list, things like that, my network, we could get 250. So I made it like purposely 250, sell it out. Next year, we wanted to go 5. We were only allowed 350 because of COVID, because 500 and 350 is like safer during the
load of bollocks.
But 350 again, sold it out last year. 850, we sold 864, so again sold it out. So now the market now knows, like, this event's going to sell out, so I've got to buy my ticket. I have to.
Yeah.
There's no waiting around. I want to go this time because it sells out. So that's a big thing. And then just planning the promotion so that you've got enough time to do it.
How long did you need?
So that first one was about 3 months. Yeah, we started in November. We started end of November, so December, January, February, and it was in March. Yeah, so 3 months. And
90 days.
And not just relying on ads. It's hard work, really hard work. Like, you got to have guys on the phones. If you've got a database of some sort, or you've got clients, customers, you've got to be calling them. Because a big percentage, I think like 30% of the sales last year came from the phone.
Nice.
Mad.
And something me and Jacob are being big on during our journey. Obviously, we started Freedom Lifestyle, the podcast, in September 2022, and obviously we started our membership and stuff in December. So we're quite new to the game, and something we're big on is we're documenting our journey, because Fraser Brooks said to us that one of his biggest regrets was not documenting his journey. So we're being very authentic with the wins and also the losses, because you can learn from your failures. So my question to you, Matt, what's been your biggest failure in your whole business career, and what did you learn from it so our Freedom Lifestyle listeners can learn to not do that?
Yeah, so the biggest failure, I think I think it goes back to EMC actually. So one of the things that we did, which year was that now? Was it last year or the year before? Last year or the year, no, not last year, year before. So middle one, again, we learned from it, which is great. But we did a big marketing campaign. We overspent on the production of it, like the videos and things like that. We spent way too much money on the ads, and we carried it on, even though because we spent so much money getting it ready, we was emotionally connected to it.
Yeah,
it's like, well, this has got to work now because we spent, and we ended up wasting a load of. I think we ended up wasting like $100,000 for that campaign on something that didn't work because of pure what's the word, stubbornness, because we knew it weren't working, but because we first of all, we really believed it was going to work. Secondly, we spent loads of money getting it ready. We was like, it's got to work eventually, and we ended up wasting like loads of money. That was a big one. The other one was, no, that's not really a big mistake, because again, that was just because of COVID. But again, it was like it could have ruined the event at the time. We didn't have like anything in place for, pandemics basically, right? And that first event happened on the 2nd to the 4th of March 2020, and we had, about a week before the event, we were just about to sell it out. 2 weeks before the event, we started getting phone calls. It's like, yeah, I'm not coming now because of this COVID thing. We was like, at this point, we had no idea what this was. We was like, what's COVID? And we started looking it up and all this sort of stuff. And then next day, 2 people would call in and cancel. And again, we just didn't have any like airtight sort of T's and C's and stuff like that in place. So we ended up having like 30 odd people refund the event just before it started. But at the same time, because at this point, by the way, that was like 3-4 years ago, I'd put pretty much everything I had into that event. Because again, I knew long term, I'm going to sell this for 30 million potentially, right? So I put everything I had into it. If that event had folded and no one came, which meant no one knew how good it was so that they come back and bring friends, it would have broken me. And then this really started worrying me, because I was like, fucking hell, if there's 40 people that have already got their money back, there's probably loads of other people that aren't going to come. Turned out there was like 184. I think from the 260 or 270 tickets we sold, we had like 184. So it weren't too bad. But yeah, just making sure like T's and C's and things like that are in place. Like now we have a COVID guarantee now anyway. So we say, look, if for whatever reason this does come back, we'll make sure we refund you. But yeah, there's some.
Crazy. So throughout your whole journey, obviously you've gone on a hell of a journey. You've met some crazy people.
Yeah.
You've been networking all over the shop. Like, what's been some of your biggest learns from networking?
I'll tell you, like, there's 3 big things that I've learned sort of along the way. If I could sort of, bust some wisdom on you after all these years. Again, and a lot of this I've learned from my network and stuff like that, right? One of the biggest ones that I've only learned in the last, I'd say 4 years, and I suppose it's because I'm getting a bit older. I'm not old, I'm 36, but I'm getting a bit older. But I wish I knew it when I was younger, is energy. Yeah. Like the amount of like, if I knew then what I know now, I mean, I'd already be worth hundreds of millions for sure, right? Because I'd only just started about, sort of 4 years ago, really understanding and being very self-conscious of the way I feel, the energy levels, how food and exercise affects my energy levels and mood and all that stuff, and sleep and all that sort of stuff. Like, I'm so crazy productive now because, again, I put loads of time and energy and focus into it. I understand that if I have a kebab the night before, the reason I'm feeling sluggish and I don't want to get out of bed the next day is because I ate a kebab. Yeah. It's not because I'm tired. It's because my body's been working non-stop to break down this piece of shit I've just fucking fed it. And I feel like shit. So like, I'm very, very aware of my energy levels now. And that's a massive one for me. And again, I learned this just off of, just other people that I'm around that are getting older, and they tell me, oh yeah, read this book about nutrition, try this drink. I just had I love the old like nootropics and things like that I've looked into.
I'm on the coffee. The coffee wasn't a big thing for me, but these nootropic coffees, it was on Dragons, they are unbelievable.
Yeah, man.
They've got like mushrooms in them.
Yeah, well the one I got at the moment, which I'm loving, is called Magic Mind. It's like a little green shot. Magic Mind. It's got some mushrooms in it, but it's like, it's unreal, man. It's just, it clears your brain fog. You just get more shit done. You don't procrastinate, all that sort of stuff. If I don't work out in the morning, I'm probably, I'd say 50% less productive. No joke. If I get up late for whatever reason and I go to work without working out, of doing something, even if it's just a walk for half an hour, I'm 50% less productive. No joke. Like, but I'm aware of it now. Whereas I used to think that, oh no, I'm just tired. No, you're not. It's because you're not energized, because your body hasn't moved in the morning and all this sort of stuff. So I'm proper focused on that. Second thing is like, just drop what other people think as well. Drop that baggage. I stopped caring what people think when I was 30. I can literally I'm a very self-aware person, but it's a massive thing. I've been free since I've been 30. Like, I remember, everyone says it, right? Everyone likes to say, oh yeah, I don't care what people think. Everyone says that from school. Yeah, I don't care what people think and all this sort of stuff. Something to say, right? But deep down, 99% of people do, and they're carrying it around. And you waste, again, going back to energy, you waste so much energy thinking about and worrying about what other people think.
Huge.
That it's massive. The reason I dropped it is because when I was 30, I was still with Andy actually, but I was just starting the agency, and I knew, because of everything I know from Andy and all these other guys, I knew I had to start putting out content. I knew I had to do video. I knew I had to do this stuff and put it out there. And I know this for 5 years, and I'm 30 now, and I was like, why haven't I fucking done it yet? And the reason I started thinking about it was because I turned 30. And when I turned 30, it's a very scary time for me, because it was the first time ever that I can remember my dad turning that age. Does that make sense? So I can't remember my dad's 29th birthday or his 27th or his 26th. I could remember my dad's 30th birthday, and now I'm 30. So that means I'm the same age as my dad. In my head, I was like, fuck me, I'm my dad.
Yeah,
I'm a dad's age.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was very scary to me. So it was the first time I sort of had a bit of mortality, I suppose, and was like, I'm going to fucking die, and I'm getting older, and I'm running out of time. And why haven't I done this stuff yet? In the last 5 years, I know I should have done this. Why haven't I done this? So I had to do some really deep internal work and think about the reasons why. And I finally come to the conclusion that I was worried about what people think. I was worried about being judged, being laughed at, people mocking me, all this shit. And then when you go even deeper and you try to break down like who it is, because that's the most important question. Who am I worried about? Because it's not my family. It was never my family. My family would be supportive. It's not my friends. It was people that I used to go to school with that I haven't seen in like 15 years. How fucking absurd is that? And I was like, I could picture them. I don't even see them anymore. But for whatever reason, there was something in my head that made me worry about what, Tom or Maria, whatever they're called, from my school that I haven't seen in so long, would think. And then it just dawned on me that I was being an absolute moron. And I dropped it. And I just said, fuck that. I'm not letting that. Because once you come to terms with it and you actually admit the real thing, it's very easy to get over it. It's all the lies you tell yourself is the reason why you don't go for it. But as soon as I accepted the fact that was the case, I wouldn't have it. It's like lots of stuff when you put stuff off. When you come to terms with the real reason, not the bullshit you tell yourself, the real root reason why you're not doing it. When you know that, you're like, no, I'm going to do it. So I started putting out content and stuff like that when I was 30. What was crazy was one of the people that I was worried about, for whatever irrational reason, actually reached out to message me and said, that's unreal, mate. Great work. You look like you're smashing it. So again, it's completely irrational. I think it was it Alex Hormozy that said, I think it was Alex Hormozy, where he heard it from someone else, but he said, in your 20s, you care about what people think. In your 30s, you don't care what people think. And in your 40s, you realize that no one was thinking about you at all.
Yeah. I've seen that.
Yeah.
It's so fucking true, man. Luckily I realized that way earlier, because they're genuinely not. No one gives a fuck about you in your life. You're not that important. And that's what I had to tell myself. No one cares. They've got their own shit to deal with.
Yeah.
Just get out and do shit. So, that was a big one as well.
Yeah, that's some really good wisdom. And I kind of kept thinking about with Jacob, because what he's learning now with NLP and empowered intelligence is what he's qualified for, and it all links when you mention like the words root and stuff like that. It's mad that something like that has held back probably majority of the world from actually taking that step into the entrepreneurial world.
I think deep down, if everyone's really honest, the reasons why they haven't done half the stuff they want or dream of is because they're scared of what other people are going to think.
I agree.
And they're scared of being judged.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you now, it's so fucking freeing when you drop it. Like, I genuinely now, I don't care at all, because again, I know most people aren't even thinking about it. Like, there probably are people that are going to watch this and think things about me, both positive and negative, but I just don't care, because I'm never going to meet them. They're not important to me. The people that are important to me, it is important to care what people think. I do believe that, but only the people that matter. So for example, if suddenly all of my loved ones, as in my family, my kids, my wife, my mum and dad, if all of them started thinking that I was a dick, now that's something that would worry me. And I would have to figure out, okay, what am I doing that's causing this? Because I care about what they think. But to think about strangers, people that are just watching you, that you never meet ever, that are just out there somewhere, to worry about what they think and let them hold your life back and not do the shit that you want to do is absolutely insane. So you've got to drop it. And when you do, honestly, it's like a huge weight's lifted, and suddenly you're like, right, let's get to
game on.
And then if you look at my journey from 30, there was nothing. And then bang, in the last 5 years, content everywhere. I started to ask to speak on stages without being paid, never. Coming on podcasts, doing videos. If someone asked me anything that would get me out there, I did.
Yeah,
because I dropped, and it was just the most freeing thing ever,
And now you're doing absolute bits. And obviously before camera, and obviously we said we'll talk about anything on this. We were speaking about like psychedelics and mushrooms and that sort of thing. In terms of for you, Matt, like have you used it more for fun, or have you had some amazing business epiphanies from taking like psychedelics?
So the first time I did it was about 4 or 5 years ago in the dam, as you do. and it was just a crazy enlightening experience. And I didn't do it again for a couple of years, but then 2 years ago we started, I started taking, and we'd plan a day. How we do it, again, it's not sitting in a room or anything like that. We'll get some mushrooms. We'll pick a nice day. Has to be nice.
The
sun's got to be out.
Oh no, we've done that the wrong way. In the rain, flooding, the wooded fields, everything, camping. We can't. Bad mistake.
Light a fire.
Yeah, couldn't light a fire. Couldn't make food.
and then get me and a couple of guys, and we'll walk. We'll plan a walk, and it's normally a couple of hours trip, but it's the most enlightening experience, I think. The biggest thing I get out of it, and again, I don't do crazy ones. I don't see dragons and unicorns and all that shit. The world just comes alive. And for me, like when I have done them, it really does make you appreciate being alive and the world.
It makes you more connected.
So it's gratitude. That's what it is. What it gives me more than anything is an appreciation for everything. I'm in that state, and I'm thankful, so thankful for my family, my health, the world that I live in, my friends, everything. I just become the most grateful fucking person ever, because it just opened. That's the biggest benefit I get out of it, and that's so good to have, because again, loads of people that struggle with being down and depressed, most of it comes down to the fact they're not focusing on what they have got. They're just focusing on what they haven't.
Huge.
And
Clip it.
And with shrooms, especially, don't get me wrong, I do them a couple of times a year or whatever, but it's one of those ways that just overwhelms you with everything you have got, and you're like, fucking hell, I'm a lucky guy. I'm lucky just to be alive.
Right. It heightens everything.
It heightens everything. And I'm just like, look at that tree. That tree is alive. That tree's fucking breathing. That tree's sick.
We'll have to do this the next podcast collab on
on a trip. Yeah,
Well, we tried that once, haven't we?
we have that once.
yeah, kill.
Yeah, it was a bit of a
So no, they're good. Yeah, like I said, we're I'm going on a stag do in a couple of weeks, and we're going to have a nice day. So far, the forecast is sunny, so that's good. So we'll have a nice day on them. Yeah.
Wow, absolute belt, mate. And before we wrap up, a question we always ask the guests is, Matt, what does your freedom lifestyle look like?
I mean, but you probably get this answer a lot, but it's just being able to do whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do it, with whoever I want to do it with, really. For me, I've got a family now. So my son's now 16, Isabel's 12, Sophie's 11. It's just being able to take them away if I want to, just randomly. I'm really lucky because I've got an amazing team, so I don't have to be in the office if I don't want to. Like Emily 2 days ago said to me, it's our first year anniversary, wedding anniversary coming up in July. Let's go somewhere sweet. We booked Florence. Booked Florence. Did that. We wanted to book a holiday in August, just being able to book that and just not worrying about it. Like, as well, again, going back to how I grew up, money was always a stress and a struggle. And I think if you can get your finances in order, if you can learn how to earn money first, so many problems and stresses that you've got at the moment aren't there. Like, I can remember when I used to go to the petrol garage and I'd shit myself because if the petrol went £5 1p, I wouldn't have enough money in my account to pay for it. So I'm sitting there, doing that. I don't even have to look at it no more. I just go in there, just wait until it clicks, baby. Just like just little things like that.
I love
if
that.
If my friend calls me up and says, "Yeah, let's go out to this," I don't have to worry about money.
Yeah,
and it's just so freeing. I don't have to think, can I afford that? Can I, if I do this, it just doesn't enter my mind. If I want to do something, I can do it. It's great. Like, literally before, because I had an hour to spare before I come here, I ended up spending like £400 on cigars. I just went and got a load of Cuban cigars. I like it.
You're a funny one. This podcast has been class as always. There's going to be many more future collaborations, and anyone listens to this, go check out Matt. Like, if you want to take your marketing to the next level, if you want an incredible funnel or get your ads done, and also as well, if you're a young entrepreneur, check out EMC's events because it really is incredible. I absolutely loved it myself, and I can't wait to be going back. But grateful for you coming on, Matt.
No,
it's been an absolute
pleasure.
Come on, let's have it.
Let's have it.